With the first party list done and dusted, it's time to look at the best third-party games to grace this system. Now when it comes to third-party Wii titles, it's safe to say the situation is incredibly hit or miss. I mean, some of the third-party Wii games are just downright terrible and don't even deserve to be called proper games. But when you find a good third-party Wii game, you find a damn good game. Like with the majority of my lists, I'm only including one game per franchise on this one, and please remember that it's just my opinion and not the least bit fact. So with that said, let's get started! When it comes to Sega, most people agree that Sonic the Hedgehog is their best series. Well, for me it's only their second best series. What? I just like House of the Dead more! Yes, you heard that right. I think House of the Dead is Sega's best series, as are some of the best on-rail shooters and arcade games to date. The first game, while pretty dated, is still fun to play and it has its memorable moments. The second game is my personal favourite, with great set pieces, lots of levels to travel through, some of the best bosses in the series, and the hilariously bad voice acting.
I don't want to die!
The third game, while not as good as the second, is still a pretty good game with a more serious tone, multiple pathways, and great set design. The fourth game was much better than the first, adding the new shakeaway feature, grenades, even more multiple pathways, not to mention being the hardest House of the Dead game to date. So what's next, House of the Dead 5? Nope! This time we got a prequel. Yes, I, like a lot of people, were very surprised when they announced House of the Dead Overkill as a prequel to the first game. And the fact that it was coming to the Wii was an added bonus, what with being able to point, shoot and reload these. The House of the Dead Overkill is one of the more ambitious games in the House of the Dead series, by adding various new features such as being able to hold more than one weapon at one time, having slowdown and combo multipliers, as well as being able to purchase upgrades for your weapons. The game also has that classic House of the Dead feel, with huge amounts of zombies and insane amounts of violence. I also like how the developers made this game look and feel like a really bad 60s, 70s B-movie, which led to some very funny moments, and I love the dialogue between G and Washington. And while I still anxiously wait for House of the Dead 5, I'm perfectly happy playing this bloody infested baby in the meantime. Many people have labelled the Wii as a family or kids console. What with all its casual games there are, not to mention the hundreds of mini-game compilations and all the movie tie-ins, it's easy to see why the Wii gets its recognition as a family console. Well, I beg to differ. We gotta get it up. Let's go now. Let's go now. Y'all ready to ride? Y'all ready to fly? Y'all ready to live? Y'all ready to come on? Let's go, y'all. Let's go, y'all. It was a kiddie system, they said. It didn't have any hardcore games, they said. Well, you clearly have not been looking hard enough to see that the Wii has plenty of A-class hardcore games, and the best example of this is Mad World. Mad World is an extremely violent graphic novel come to life, and takes full advantage of this by having the attacks you can perform and kills you can pull off being extremely over the top and gruesome, and it's incredibly satisfying every time. Mad World is a game that lets you be creative and find the best and bloodiest ways to kill people, allowing for a lot of diversity and replay value for just how many different ways you can kill people. The game also makes great use of the environment by having stages be in different locations so that you can use new obstacles and hazards as your piece. The game also has a kick-ass soundtrack and the visual art style is something to be complimented, as the developers really did make this feel like a Frank Miller graphic novel come to life. The game is however not without fault, as the boss fights in this game are rather hit or miss, as I love Elise, Shogun Shogun guy, and her Frederick von Twirlen killer. There are bosses I absolutely can't stand for the life of me, like Frank Kojak and the Shaman. Ugh, I hate those guys. Also, the game is rather short, but the various ways you can kill people and the creativity you can add does add some more meat to the game. So if you think the Wii is a system for kids, you clearly need to try this game out and just see how wrong you are. If there's one video game that really took Wii owners by surprise, it's definitely No More Heroes. The game where you play as Travis Touchdown as you make your way through the United Assassin Association, killing hundreds of nukes, was a unique game that for the Wii's library really stood out among the true gems that the console had to offer. But then it got a sequel. So if you thought the first No More Heroes was good, man, you have not seen anything yet. No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle was a huge improvement over the first game, at least in most areas, and led to a more memorable and enjoyable experience than the first game wished it could have had. Perhaps the biggest improvement over the original was the gameplay and combat. Now it was much more satisfying to kill enemies as you had various different weapons and melee attacks to utilize, which made the game far less repetitive. Suda 51 got rid of the pointless hub world and the need to do odd jobs, so you could proceed to the next rank fighter, which meant there was a lot less time wasting and pointless padding. Also, this time around the jobs were much more fun as they were in the form of 8-bit mini games, and I couldn't get enough of them, especially the Bug Killer game. Love that game! The game also had more bosses to fight, some of which were just plain amazing, and it still retained the classic No More Heroes style of humour. On the downside, the game at some points takes itself way too seriously, which feels very odd and out of place for the story. Also, some of the boss fights are just plain boring. But do I even need to talk about this gigantic asshole? Aside from a few problems, No More Heroes 2 was a big improvement from the original, and I hope to see them make No More Heroes free for the Wii U. There comes a time in a gamer's life where they come across a game they had never seen before and have no idea what to expect, but say, why not, and tries the game out for his or herself. Then they come to find that the game is surprisingly enjoyable, and they experience something rather unexpected. Okay, the punchline is Battalion Wars 2. I had never played the first Battalion Wars, I had no idea what to expect when going into this game, and the end result turned out to be a very fun real-time strategy game that is not only fun, but seriously addictive. Battalion Wars 2 has you control a battalion of different soldiers and vehicles from different classes in an effort to thwart the enemy. The game is all about strategy and skill, as you yourself play as either a soldier or vehicle from a certain class alongside your team, and knowing what infantry to use against certain classes is the key to success, such as bazooka vets against tanks and flame vets against grunts or other ground infantry. The game offers the player with various different missions that let you play as a variety of classes, each with various objectives that utilize the class to its fullest. That's not all, mind you, since this game also has online play, so that you can battle players in online skirmishes to see who can destroy the most of the other player's forces, assault missions where one player attacks and the other defends, and even co-op missions where one team has to help the other in order to survive. Battalion Wars 2 is the perfect example of not knowing what to expect and being pleasantly surprised, and I'm hoping they make Battalion Wars free. Capcom has got to be one of my favourite third-party companies, and one of the main reasons is that they often make games that offer rich and unique gameplay experiences that aren't found in most games today. Case in point, Monster Hunter Tri! I will admit, before playing this game, I have heard of, but never played any game in the series. So going into the Tri, I didn't know what to expect. At first, I could not get into this game, as I found it to be rather slow, awkward to control, and most of the missions were nothing but fetch questing. But from the moment I fought my first true monster, I was hooked, and from then on, kept coming back to this game for months upon months on end. What I love so much about Monster Hunter Tri is that it really is a test of video game skill. The game tests you in every way possible and really pushes you to your limit and makes you work hard for victory, but it's all the more satisfying when you deliver that final blow to the monster. Another thing I love about the game is the monsters themselves. Capcom really went out of their way when creating these monsters because they're not just another video game enemy or boss. No, they really do move, feel and act like real monsters. You have to go out of your way to understand how they act, how they move, their attack patterns, and which really makes you feel like a true hunter the way you interact with them. But by far, the best thing about this game was the online multiplayer. I will say this now, Monster Hunter Tri has the best online multiplayer of any Wii game ever. It truly is an amazing service. It's smooth, finding people to hunt with is easy, and hunting with friends is even more fun, because you really have to work together as a team to overcome the even harder monsters, which gives you a real sense of satisfaction and achievement. Plus there are more missions online than there are offline, as well as all new monsters, weapons and armor sets. Also, you tackle missions depending on your rank, so you don't accidentally fight a monster that's out of your league, causing your team to fail. Monster Hunter Tri is a game that takes time to fully appreciate, but it's well worth the wait. And I can't wait to get my hands on Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate! If there's one video game genre that I felt was a missed opportunity on Nintendo Wii, it was definitely first-person shooters. I mean, no one could seem to understand how to use Wii controls effectively. Metroid Prime 3 showed everyone that it could be done right, so why wasn't it? But there were some FPS games on the Wii that were actually very good aside from Metroid, such as... and also... Yep, I've decided to give both GoldenEye 007 and the Conduit 2 number 5 on this list, because honestly, I can't decide which one is better. Let's talk about each game individually. GoldenEye 007 is a remake of the N64 classic, and while it's not as good as the N64 version, it's still a very good game on its own. GoldenEye 007 really made you feel like James Bond, and the game's incorporation of both stealth and firefights into the levels and the multiple objectives to complete really helped emulate the feeling of being a spy and going around completing missions for the MI6. And the game did a great job of recreating the 1999 film with modern-day Daniel Craig Bond look and feel, as well as having strong online multiplayer and smooth controls. The Conduit 2 was a huge step up from the original, as this game offered a lot more variety into the gameplay, with various different weapons, set pieces, boss battles and so on. The multiplayer was much better this time around, providing players with more options and having a much better sense of balance and customization. Also, I thought the game had a very strong art style, and as always it controlled very well. When it comes to deciding which one is better, I honestly can't say, because while I think GoldenEye has the better single player for having more diverse missions with stealth and firefights, I also think Conduit 2 has the better multiplayer with better online play as well as having more fun weapons to use. So, in the end, you can decide which is better. I am upset that the developers didn't try their best when it came to making first-person shooters for the Wii, but I'm glad that these style of games are in its library. If there's one video game character who really found his home on the Nintendo Wii, it's definitely Sonic the Hedgehog. After the major disappointment of Sonic 06 on the Xbox 360, Sega bounced back with Sonic and the Secret Rings, which was actually a pretty good game and was one of the better Wii launch titles. After that we then got Sonic Unleashed, which was the first step into defining how Sonic should handle in 3D. And while I like both versions the same, the general consensus was that the Wii version fared better. After that we got Sonic and the Black Tie, which was meh. And then we got probably the greatest 3D Sonic game ever made. Yes, after years and years of different gameplay styles, characters and gimmicks, Sega finally decided to cut the crap and give us Sonic fans what we wanted in the form of Sonic Colors. This game stripped away all the unnecessary gimmicks of the past 3D Sonic games and went back to the classic running, jumping, high-speed action which Sonic is known for, and I could not have it any other way. But that's not to say Sega didn't give this game anything new. Oh, no. Sonic Colors introduced the little alien creatures known as Wisps.
Wisps? No, Wisps, with a W.
Yeah, I'll just stick with aliens if that's okay with everybody.
Anyway, these creatures gave Sonic various different abilities to use throughout the game and helped to explore more of the stages to find alternate routes, secrets and hidden goodies. But unlike most 3D Sonic games, these were more of an optional inclusion rather than being forced down your throat, which is how something like this should work. They're power-ups and nothing more. The rest of the game is every element of Sonic the Hedgehog at its finest. The level design is fantastic, the dialogue is very funny and well written, the soundtrack is excellent and the game provides a nice mix of both speed and platforming. If I had to give this game some fault, however, it would be that the game is rather easy, and the boss battles, with the exception of the boss in Starlight Carnival and Terminal Velocity, are an absolute joke. While Sonic the Hedgehog has been through tough times, he's now returning to form, and I think his adventures on the Wii really help with that, this game in particular. As I mentioned before, Capcom is a video game company that likes to try different things and offer new experiences for players, which I like, but sometimes this may scare away casual gamers as they don't like change, which can lead to poor sales. And this game in particular did not do well on its original release on the PlayStation 2, but thanks to the improvements made in the Wii, it received better reviews and sales. The game I am referring to in question is none other than Okami. This was Capcom's answer to the Legend of Zelda series, being how both games have similar structures and gameplay styles, and this game is up there with some of the best Zelda games ever made. Okami is one of the best Capcom games ever produced. Firstly, the unique and gorgeous looking art style is a marvel to look at, and the way it flows through the game really makes it feel like an interactive painting, and the way you use the celestial brush to interact with the environment really helps to immerse the player into the experience, and with the enhanced Wii controls, using the celestial brush is very easy. Like The Legend of Zelda, Okami has a lot of dungeons to explore, bosses to fight, and side quests to complete, all of which are a fun time and definitely worth your time and money. The game also has you going to various places and always doing something to keep the game fresh. I will admit that the game does drag out for a bit, and having to fight this boss 3 times is just ridiculous! But with those nitpicks aside, Okami is one of the finest adventure games I've ever played, and stands among the greatness that is The Legend of Zelda. It's safe to say that when it comes to fighting games, Capcom are the experts of this genre, and the Capcom vs series is the best example of this. This series has a cast of various Capcom characters duke it out with other characters from other companies in insanely fun 2 to 3 character matches, and for the longest time, Marvel vs Capcom 2 was my favourite game in the series. Until... You can push yourself to the limit, be strong and jump with me. You can fly above the rainbow with people trust and just believe. Oh yeah! Forget Marvel vs Capcom 3. This is the true next generation versus game. Capcom and the famous animation studio Tatsunoko Productions had their classic cast of characters duke it out in what is easily the best fighting game on the Nintendo Wii. Tatsunoko vs Capcom gave you everything you wanted from a great fighting game, including a diverse, fast, furious, easy pick up play yet hard to master control scheme, a variety of game modes, online play and boss battles. Tatsunoko vs Capcom is by far the most balanced and complete Capcom vs game to date, and no character feels unnecessary or useless. The fights are insane amounts of fun, with incredibly over-the-top special attacks, and being able to choose 2 characters in one team means that you can experiment with various different playstyles and attacks, giving this game a lot of variety and replay value, just so you can find out what the perfect team is. If it isn't obvious at this point, I absolutely love this game. In fact, I love it so much that I listed it as my favourite fighting game of all time, and I can't thank Capcom enough for not making this a Japan-only release. Honestly, is there really anything I can say about this game that hasn't been said already? The game brought the Resident Evil series back to new heights and completely remastered the franchise's style and tone. The game won Game of the Year various times and is currently ranked as IGN's 32nd best game of all time! Yeah, this game has a lot of praise behind it, and for good reason. Resident Evil 4 truly is a masterpiece of gaming, and the new third-person action game style really benefited the series and established the new Resident Evil formula, which is still being used today and is still able to keep players rather scared and put them on edge. The game is a perfect balance of action, puzzle solving and scares, and the game never gets tiresome or at any time boring, because you're always moving forward, changing locations, and put in new and exciting situations. The boss fights are some of the best the series has ever put out, and the extras like the Mercenaries mode and the Separate Ways campaign added more meat to an already amazing game. But Resident Evil 4 is already on the GameCube and PS2, it's nothing but a port. Well, you'd be wrong. That in the sense that not only does this game include all the content of the PS2 and the GameCube version, but the new Wii controls feel a lot more comfortable and responsive than any other control system, which make Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition the best Resident Evil experience to date, and the best third-party game on the Nintendo Wii. I'm CRASHX500, and all I can say is thank you so much to Nintendo for bringing us the Nintendo Wii, and best of luck with the Wii U.